Okay, if you're ready, Beth, it's 1 o'clock. I think we'll get started. Welcome, everyone. I'm Ann Feeney. I'm the Executive Assistant for AESA, and I'm really excited to have you all here. I'm not going to take up much time because Beth has a great presentation ready for you all. Just one or a couple announcements. We are recording this, so if you have your video on, you'll be on camera. And two, if you have a question, please put it in the chat box, and I'll monitor that. And also Beth is keeping an eye on it, and we'll try to get all of your questions answered. I guess that's it, Beth. I'm going to hand it over to you and work your magic.
Okay, thanks, Ann. Appreciate it. I'm going to start with sharing my screen today and going into the presentation mode. So if there's something that, if I move to a different tab or something and you can't see my other tab, please let me know in the chat. But today's session is how to be googly, right? Or how are we going to use Google as administrative assistants? And I'm Beth Kubish, and I'm from Nebraska. I do a little bit of work for AESA. I retired last year, and my purpose for retiring was I wanted to spend time with my grandkids. I have 7 of them, and they all live in Nebraska, as well as watch Husker volleyball. That's a big thing at my house. Obviously, that hasn't been happening. Volleyball, no, NCAA volleyball has moved into the spring. And then, as you can see, I love to play the polkas and play my button accordion. So those are things about me, and just wanted to kind of give you that little background. Again, I worked in a ESU, is what we call it in Nebraska, for a number of years. I was a technology integrationist working with classroom teachers and so forth on different tech pieces. So Ann reached out and asked if I would do this Google training. Happy to do it. It's exciting for me to get back into the arena of providing workshops. So today we're going to talk about, obviously, Google, but kind of compare it to Microsoft just a little tiny bit, thinking about Workspace or G Suite. We're going to really dive into Google Docs and show you some of the features which are similar to all of the applications in Google. And we'll talk a little bit about formatting specifically in the Docs app, and then any other options and some Q&A. But in taking a look at that agenda, is there anything that you were thinking about coming in today that maybe wasn't included? So I'll go back to there. So we're going to do some work in Docs that applies to other applications. We're going to talk about some formatting and other types of things like inserting images and stuff. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to add? Okay, perfect. So we'll go ahead and get started. So comparing Microsoft to Google, really, there's it's almost one for one, right? So Microsoft has Word and Google uses Docs. Microsoft has Excel, Google uses Sheets. Now, years ago, Microsoft was all about the installed applications. Now with office.com, you can get the same applications online, but they're very, very similar. We have surveys, we have calendar, we have email. Some of the things that Microsoft maybe are not doing, but it's a version of, is the Classroom, the Google Classroom, which is where teachers are using to share content. But Microsoft is calling theirs Teams. And I think Teams is a little bit more than Google Classroom. So you could use Teams on the Microsoft side for more of that collaboration. But really, what you can do in Microsoft, you can basically do in Google, and vice versa. So I just was reading some things about Google. They're coming out with Workspace. All right. So if you're a Google user, you have maybe seen some of the icons change. So here is Mail and Calendar and Drive and so forth. Whoops. Don't use my mouse for that. So they're coming out with this, an updated version, right? That's all it is. right now it appears that Workspace is really on the business side and maybe not on the education side, but you might see Workspace as the new G Suite somewhere. But basically the icons have changed with their update of what they call Workspace. And again, Google Docs, now it used to have the icon over here, but now it has this multicolored quick icon. So anyway, it's the same exact application. They're just, building either some new features or just a new look, just like any other vendor of any other product is updating their look and adding some features. But today we are going to look at Google Docs and really concentrate on the features of the word processing option, right, in Google Docs. So I'm going to jump out of that presentation and just, so hopefully you can see my, my Google Chrome, right? So that you can see my other tabs. So what you can do when you're starting, and this is my slide deck, I'm going to go to a different tab, and this is Google Drive, right? So if I were to go to my Google account and look at Drive, then this is what's going to show up for me. So Drive is basically my hard drive of my Google. So this is all online. These are all the folders that I have in Google Drive, and you can create the folders and you can nest them just like you can do that on your regular device, where you can create folders and nest your documents. So if I were to start a new document within Google, like anything else, there's multiple ways to do something. Normally what I would do is I'd come back to Drive, I'd come up here to my new button, and then I would select the application that I wanted to do. So for instance, Docs, Google Docs, which is the word processing, that's what I would choose. Now over here you have this arrow, which will expand to either a blank document or a template. So you as an administrative assistant could create a template. Let's say that you have a newsletter that you normally put out, and the top part of the newsletter is the same every month. You just change the date. You could create a template so that you go back to that same template, has the same exact content, same styles, all of those things have been added. And if we wanted to learn more about templates, I guess that was one of the ideas I had for Anne. That could be an additional workshop if you guys were thinking about, how to continue on in your learning with Google. But mostly what I do is I just start with this blank document, and it's going to give me a blank screen. Now it's asking, do I want to put this in a shared folder? Okay. And I'm going to talk a little bit about sharing. So for right now, I'm just going to say, yes, that's what I want to do, is create this blank document and share it. So again, just a word processor document. And there we have it. So if you have two screens, if you have a ability to flip back and forth between our Zoom and maybe go into Drive and create a new document, I would encourage you to do that so that you can kind of follow along on some of these features, because I believe that you need to, see it done. You kind of need to do it together, and then you need to do it separately or on your own so that you can really get a clue or a better view, or a stronger opinion, feeling confident that you can do some of those things. So again, if you have a second screen, or if you can flip back and forth between Zoom and try some of these things out, I encourage you to do that. So again, I just created my my doc by going into Drive, and I'm gonna pop over here to Drive again. I went into New, and I'm gonna choose Google Docs. And again, these are all the other options that I have, and most of them are very similar, but I just chose the blank document in Google Docs. Now, as I said earlier, there are like 2 or 3 different ways to do everything. So another way, I'm going to try to move my, let's see, there we go. Now, there is another way to create a Google Doc. I know that's what I want to do. All right. I know I just want to start right away from a blank Google document. So I can go into a new tab, and right up here in my URL, okay, let me get that better, right here. Okay, so that's where I type my URL. I would go docs.google, oops, I have to have an S in there, .google.com/create. And again, this works the same for docs, for sheets, for forms, all of those. You put whatever you want. We're going to do a document. So docs, then .google.com/create. I hit enter and boom, it creates that blank document. So those are two different ways that you can create a document within Google. First, go to Drive, like I did over here, creates that empty blank document, or just go to a new tab, type in the URL that adds create at the end. So I don't use the URL option very often. Normally what I do is I just start from Drive and create my document, and I'm ready to go. Any thoughts or questions on creating? And again, it's the same for any of those types of applications, sheets, forms, slides, any of them. You can start from Drive, or you can go just to a URL. Secondly, if you have, and this happens to me on occasion, I want to share a document that was created in Microsoft. So I have a Word file and I want to upload it basically so that I could share it easily within Google. Again, go to my Drive. So I'm at my Drive page, go to the new, the plus new, and now I have this file upload. So I can use this for images. I can use file upload for video. So maybe I have a video that I want to upload and share into Google. I could use this for a PDF. I could use this for a Word document. All those applications can be uploaded into Google also. And once I hit the upload, I select my, my option. So I'm going to select my image here and hit open. And now that has been uploaded into my Drive. So I can find my picture right here. And the reason why I would upload an image or a video so that I could share it with other users. You know, I can attach a document, I can attach an image to an email, all of those kinds of things. But what I want to do is share it, or maybe in one of my documents that I create, I want to bring over that image. And we're going to talk about images towards the end of our session today, but there are various reasons why you would want to upload a file. But to do it, it's very simple. You just click on the file upload option right here and then choose whatever you want. Now, one little caveat, if you try to upload a Word document, you may lose some of your formatting. In fact, you probably will lose some of your formatting. And then secondly, if you wanted to upload, so if I have a Word file here, all right, and I wanted to upload that, it may not look as neat or as put together as it was. So here's that file that I uploaded as it did in its, native Word program. Again, the formatting doesn't always work well. But it's a way to share, it's a way to collaborate, okay? So I have my images that I had in my document are all uploaded. Everything, is pretty good here in this particular case. But when you upload a PDF, all right, remember PDFs are just files that we can create so that others can't edit. It's going to stay as a PDF, okay? So when you upload a PDF file from your hard drive into Google, it's still going to remain as a PDF file. Any questions on uploading? Great. Cool. Okay, so the next piece, which is the beauty of Google, and again, I think that Microsoft has tried to do some of these things, but it's so simple on the Google side, is now I want to collaborate with Anne, right? I want to make sure that Anne and I can come together and edit this document together. So I basically want to share with Anne my document that I'm creating. Just like starting from scratch, there's two ways to do almost anything. I could come back out to my drive. So here's my tab that I have on Google Drive. And now I'm going to find my untitled, where did I put my untitled? Well, I'm going to share this one because I can't find my untitled page. So this is selected, okay? All I have to do is come up here into this people icon with a plus, right? So once I select my file, I can go to this people icon, and that is the sharing icon for that file. So you'll see that I have all these people that have already been shared, okay? And Anne is already in it. But if I wanted to add somebody else, all right? So for instance, I want to add Deb. Deb is here, or I could add an email of a person. So I'm just going to add from a different email account that I have. Woof. So here is my email. This is bcubish@esu2. That's a different email that I'm using for this particular application or a webinar. I select that, and now here comes the critical piece. Do you want bcubish to be an editor? Do you want bcubish just to view it? Or do you want to give bcubish some comment option? So in other words, bcubish cannot edit my document, but rather she can add comments, and we will be showing you how to add comments. So those are the options when you want to share a document. And again, this is universal between all of the applications, but when you want to share a document with someone, you go to the share button. All right, done. Either in Drive, and again, the share is this icon with the plus, but I have to make sure that my file is selected. Or the second option is to choose share from my document, okay? Once I select share, it gives me the same, well, I have to, okay, so sample, I have to give it a title before I can share it. It gives me the same screen or the same window. Again, I could type somebody's name up here just like I did before, or this is what I like to do, all right, is to come down here. So in other words, I'm going to share a link, all right? Now, this is restricted to only people added can open this link. In other words, these people that are up here are the only ones right now that can get to this link, all right? So that's not what I want. What I want to do is make sure I can share it with anyone across any of the domains. So you're in an educational organization, and your organization probably has a Google domain. So you can share it easily among your Google members within your particular organization or domain, or I can change the share settings. And to do that, I just come down here and click where it says change to anyone with a link. And now what it says here is anyone with a link can view it. Okay, so there's a couple big things. Do you want restricted to only the people that you have added? Or do you want anyone with a link? And then secondly, how do you want them to access your document? Do you want them to be able to comment? So in other words, if I wanted to share it with Jane, who works in Massachusetts, and I want her to comment on my document, then I could share it this way and add comment. Or I could let anyone, right, give anyone my link and let anyone edit it. Not what I would recommend. So what I use this option for is, for instance, these types of examples. We have this webinar. I want you to see my document so I can share it, okay, and give you viewing options. All I need to do is copy the link right here. Just copy link. It pasted my link into my dash, or into my computer uh, memory. I couldn't think of the word memory. And there's that link. So I can put this into our chat today. So you could access this document. Come on. Where's my chat? Here it is, way over here. So you can access that document by clicking on it, and you can view the document. You won't be able to make any changes because remember, that's what I selected, was to give everyone the option to view. So sharing a Google Doc is critical when you're trying to share it with others, either inside your domain or outside. If you're sharing it inside your domain, usually the option is pretty simple, that you can, just do a start, okay, by typing in one of your users' names and it'll populate for you if it's in your domain. If you wanted to share with somebody outside your domain, you're probably going to have to type their entire email. Or secondly, if you just want to share this document and give people the right to view it, then I want to make sure that I've changed this down here so that anyone that has the link can view this document. So did you practice that on your own as we were going through looking at the share settings? And did anyone have a share setting that didn't make sense, or you wanted to question, or do you have any questions on sharing? My normal procedure is I share it from here. I rarely share it from Drive. I normally just come in here and share it. Cool, good. All right. So let's see here. I'm trying to get my.
Beth, there was one
ahead.
question asked, how do you shorten that link?
Good question. So there's URL shorteners. That's what you're trying to find to shorten that link. And I know in Google Forms, and again, our Google Forms session is next week, it automatically shortens it a little bit. What I like to use, and I don't know what you guys use, but I like to use bit.ly, and I'll just go here, bitly.com. That's the one I like to use. The reason why I like to use that is I can get a free account, awesome, but also with the free account, I can customize my links. So I went to the create button, I paste in that link, and here is my shortened URL right here, okay? I can copy that, or I can customize it. So for instance, I want to put AESA 12.10.2020, and that's a custom URL, right? Something went wrong. I probably can't have any dots or something. AESA 12_10/2020. So now when I copy, and all I have to do is copy up here, all right, I can copy that. I'll go back to my document and I'll paste that in. So that when I hit return, and that's again, usually anything about Google, when you hit return, it becomes a hot link. So both of these links, this one and this top one, will take you to this page. But that's what I like to use for a URL shortener. There's others. There's tinyURL. But tinyURL and Bitly are the two that I've seen most often. What you have to check is, does your domain block either of those? So if you are in a domain where you have student access, your domain, your network IT people may block those two websites. But that's the one that I prefer. Has anyone used another URL shortener that they like?
This is Ann. I've used the Control K quite a bit to insert the link directly. I use that all the time.
Super, super. So when you use that, you copy the link
Correct.
and then Control K.
Yeah, and then you can link it right to a word in the document.
Oh, yeah.
You go click here. So I highlight here,
Right.
click or hit Control
Control
K,
K.
and then I can put the URL right in there and
Yeah,
save.
perfect. Yes. So that is basically how you share a document, okay? And it's a critical piece. Again, there's two ways to do everything. I like to do it here, but I'm telling you, I've been in technology and I've been doing this presentations and webinars for 20 years and I still forget, right? So it just happens. Of course, maybe I shouldn't forget, but it still happens on occasion. So, but it's easily shared. And if you forget to share it and somebody tells you, hey, Beth, I need to have access, you can go back, make the change. They don't have to log out. They don't have to refresh. You can usually go back in and it'll be shared right away. Okay, so I'm going to then just go back to my slide deck, right? And we've talked about creating, uploading, and sharing. 3 basic functions within any Google app, works just the same. But now, oh, and again, there's a little screenshot of how you share, okay, and getting the link. But now I want to talk about some things in Google about formatting, specifically to Google Docs. Okay, so these are the things that we're going to talk about for the next few minutes. We're going to go into page setup. We're going to look at indents versus tab. And we're going to throw in some hanging indent in there. We're going to look at lists and how you customize your lists. And then finally, we'll look at styles for accessibility and one of my favorite tools, Format Painter. So again, I think it would be great if you were able to open up a Word doc so that you could follow along on how to create or how to do these particular features, okay? So the first one we'll start with is setting your margins in page setup. So if you're, like me and have been around technology for a long time, whenever I wanted to change the margins in my document in Word, I would just go to the document and the document menu and choose page setup. Or what used to be a long time ago over here in File, but whatever, we're going to look at page setup. So page setup is where I can change my orientation. I can change my paper size. So if I'm working on a larger size, a tabloid size, I was trying to think of what we used to call that, but tabloid size or legal size, you can change that here. Also, something that's very fun to do is to change the page color. Now, be careful when you change the page color because it might be too dark and you'll have to use like a white font, which is fine. But what I use page setup for is I always come in and I change my document to 0.5 because, right, I always have too many words and I want to keep it on one page. And the only way I can keep it on one page is to make my margins more narrow. So this is where you change your margins. So once I hit OK, notice 2 things. A, the color of the background is that beige color. And then B, did you notice that the margin is now a 1/2 of an inch versus it was a whole inch before? And you can kind of see up there the ruler. So File, page setup is where I make those changes. So big, you know, for us in the office space, those are huge applications that we want to make sure that we know how to do. So the next one is to look at indents and tabs. Now, make sure when you work on indents and tabs that your ruler is appearing. So the default is to remove the ruler from the screen. So to get it back, I use the view menu and I want to show ruler. All right. That's all you have to do. And now look, my ruler is back here at my page. So when we're working on tabs and indents, specifically tabs, you have to have the ruler visible. So as most options, when you hit the tab, I'm hitting tab right now, it goes a ½ inch. So it moved a ½ inch. Now it moved another ½ inch. So the default for a tab, if you don't have any tabs created, is every ½ inch. But you can create your own tabs, which would erase that ½ inch default. So for instance, if I wanted to set a tab at this 1 inch mark, I click on that on the ruler. So I just clicked on the ruler and I want to set a left tab stop. Okay. So whenever I get ready to type, I hit tab. Notice that it didn't stop at the ½ inch, but rather it stopped at the 1 inch mark. I also want to do a right tab stop over here at the 6 inch mark. So I click on 6 and now I want a right tab stop. So what, whoops, sorry. So what happens when I have a right tab stop, so I'm going to type over here, this is left. Now when I have a right tab stop, I hit the tab once. Notice it just jumped way over here to the right. It didn't go every ½ inch. And now I can type this is right. You'll notice that the right tab stop is at 6 inches and everything that I type is at that going left of this right tab stop. So you have to have the ruler showing. To show the ruler, I go to the view menu and I show ruler. And then to set a tab. And of course, you know, you want to do this at the very top because if I come up here, notice those tab stops are not apparent. They're not viewable. If I click where I put them in, here they are. Because when I set those tab stops, I did not set them at the very beginning. Okay. I set them down here. So if I wanted to change that, and have these tab stops for the whole entire document, I have to select all, okay? So I can go Command A, or I want to select all. So see here, Command A is a shortcut for select all. Notice how the entire document is selected. And now I can go back in and change and create that left tab stop at 1 inch and the right tab stop at 6. And now it doesn't matter which line I'm on. I'm going to be able to type and the tab stops will work. All right. Questions on tabs and creating any tabs? Did you see that there's somebody waiting in the waiting room? Any questions on tabs, tab stops? Okay, awesome. How do you remove them? Great question. So if I select all again, okay, and here's my tab stop. I click on it, click and hold, and all I have to do is pull it down and it's gone. So I find that blue dot or that blue triangle right there. I click and hold. So I'm holding with my mouse. I pull down out of the ruler and now that tab stop is gone. So all of that now it goes back to the default ½ inch, right? Because I hit tab every time, it goes back to the default ½ inch. Good question, thank you. Let's see here. I would lose my chat. Okay, all right, excellent. So I like to use the left and right tab stop a lot when I'm doing, when I'm trying to create maybe an outline, or I'm putting together a little table, but I don't want to use the table feature. I just want to, a couple, 3 lines. And so I'm trying to do my left and my right tab stop. That's when I like to use those. So next I want to talk about the indent feature. Cool feature, such a great feature. So here is text that I am typing, all right, for my next feature to share with you today. This is the indent feature that works great for indenting large groups of text. And I have an error here. All right. So this line I want to indent. So, this is something that you use when you're doing outlines, right? And you have an introduction and, or sometimes I like to use it when I'm just doing some lists, but I don't want to put a dot or whatever. The indent feature is right over here. This is the increase and this is the decrease. We're going to use the increase feature here. So I click, make sure I'm in front of the text that I want to indent. I use the indent feature. And notice, this is the key here, notice that all of that text indented, right? Let me undo that. To undo, I can either go edit undo or Command Z will undo that. So the difference in using the indent feature and tab is, I'm going to press tab now. That's tab. Tab only indents the first line, right? But the indent feature will indent all of the text. So I'll remove that tab. I'm going to use the indent feature up here, and all of the text indents. I love that feature. I use it a lot. Sometimes I use the tab and not thinking, and then I have to go back and use the indent feature. The other piece that I want to share with you is called hanging indents. And you don't see hanging indent very often. I think it's mostly used with like bibliographies and those kinds of things. So for a hanging indent, I'm going to take that indent back out. A hanging indent simply means that the first line is out to the left of the margin, and the second and the rest of the lines are indented. So a hanging indent is often used for a bibliography, and this is how you do it. That makes it so much easier. Right up here is my margin and my hanging indent feature, right? So all I have to do is drag this, drag the bottom. There we go. So I'm dragging both of those pieces over to the 1/2 inch mark, and I'm letting go. Notice that my text here indented, but now I'm going to take the top line, it says first line indent, and bring that back out to my margin, and that is a hanging indent. So now I'm going to just copy this text here so that we can see how that looks. So notice that every line that I type after that then is indented, but when I hit return twice, goes back to the back to the margin. And because I haven't changed the hanging indent for this paragraph, it remains. If I wanted to change that to normal, so I'm on this paragraph here, my cursor is right here in this paragraph. I can simply bring that indent back and notice that it's indented. And now on the bottom here, I'll pull that back out to the margin, and now it's no longer hanging indent. Again, the only thing that I can think of is the bibliography, but it's a slick tool as opposed to having to hit return and tab and those kinds of things. And the indent feature doesn't work because the indent feature indents all of the text in that paragraph. So those are the indents and tabs section. Questions? Did you get a chance? I'm going to give you a chance to practice that. to see if there's any questions. Super, great. Our next one is the lists feature, okay? So I'm going to include a list, all right? So this is my first item on the list, and then the second item on the list, and third item, and then we'll finish it with fourth item. All right. I want these words, okay, these groups of words, I want them to have a bullet, okay, a bullet in front of them. Up here are the two choices that you have. This is bulleted and this is numbered. So I have those pieces. I'll scroll back out. I'm going to highlight all of those lines and I'm going to choose the bulleted item. Notice number one, it puts a bullet in front of all of them, but number two, it also indents them 1/2 inch. Okay, so I can uncheck that, goes back out. I can check it and I have a bulleted item and it indents. A couple of things about this. Number one, there's a down arrow right beside bulleted list. And notice you have other options. So you don't have to have a bullet. You could have a box, like a checkbox. So now my bullets have changed to look like a checkbox, which I love that, you know, because if you're putting together this and then you can actually check it off with a pen if you wanted to. But you can change those bullets, how they look, by just going to the down arrow and you have these options. There's kind of an arrow. The other thing is if I click on my first item and I hit enter, it automatically puts in a bullet, but now I want to indent because I want like a sub item, right? So this is where the indent feature works awesome. I can use the indent feature and notice it indents it, changes to a different type of bullet. And now I can type in this text, but watch as I type in this text and I'm just copying and pasting this text from above. Do you see how the text is also indented, right? So I can take and go back. So I can undo that, or I can use the indent feature and it will move it over, indent 1/2 inch, and it'll put a different type of bullet. I'm going to show you under the second list what happens if I hit tab. So this one, I chose the indent feature up above. Now I'm going to use the tab. So I hit tab. Okay, whoops. Same thing, right? It indents it 1/2 inch, same thing, and it looks the same way. So what the indent feature will do for you is if I want to take, for whatever reason, if I want to take that bullet out, okay? So I'm selecting this particular line. I'm coming up here to my bulleted feature. I'm clicking on it, removes the bullet. And now, you know, it's like a list within this particular title. If I wanted to move it over again, I could go ahead and indent it if I wanted, and notice that there is not a bullet. So that's really what that indent feature works great for, is if I have this bulleted list or this numbered list and I want to indent some items underneath that, and it's more than one line, you have to use that indent feature. The tab feature won't do it for you. If you want to keep the bullet, the tab feature works fine. So I'll show you here under this third, okay? I'm going to take the bullet off. Whoops. I'm going to use the tab, right? I'm going to paste in. So do you see how this isn't indenting? But this did indent. So I had to use that indent feature to get that to work. The other option besides a bulleted list, if I highlight all of this section again, I don't want a bulleted list. Rather, I want a numbered list. So I'm just going to select numbered list and notice how it changes from bullets or boxes or arrows to letters and, or excuse me, numbers and letters. All those are options too. I could have parentheses behind my numbers, excuse me. I could have periods and do 1.1, 1.2. So for policy, those kinds of things, this works great. I could also use letters or Roman numerals. So the options for numbered features are just as great and useful as for bulleted items. I don't know why my screen keeps jumping around. So what do you think of bulleted versus numbered and using the indent versus tab? Any questions on any of that? Oh my gosh, we're down to 15 minutes. Holy cow. All right, we're going to keep going. Our next item is about accessibility and styles. Good, thanks, Jenny. And why it's important to use the accessibility and the styles feature for text to share with others. So the accessibility feature is basically how we change right up here to use different styles. So titles, subtitles, headings, and so forth are what we're basically talking about here. I'm going to remove those links and just type in let's see, Google for admin assistance. That's our title, all right? By highlighting that and coming up here to the style menu, I can use title and notice it moves it to 26, so it's a default. It doesn't necessarily center it, which I don't, I like to center my titles, so I can come up here and I can change my align to center. But what it does is over here is this little icon for outline, okay? Show the document outline. So what we're looking at is how the styles are arranged in your document. So for instance, we can look at, I'm just going to put style 1, all right? I'm going to highlight style 1 and I'm going to change that style to say heading 1. Notice that's included in my outline. This is 20. And again, that's all default, okay? Now I'll come down here and I'm going to add style 2. And I want that to be a heading 1 also. So I'll change that to heading 1. But this number 1, I want that to be heading 2. I want the style to be heading 2. So notice over here at the left in my outline, here's the title, here's style 1, style 2. Those are both heading 1s, but now first on the item on the list is a heading 2. So do you see how it indents? Why we want to use these styles is for basically for the hearing impaired, because when the recording of this content is shared with the hearing impaired in their devices, it will say heading 1, style 1 is the title of the heading, heading 1, style 2, then it'll go in and it'll say heading 2. So it gives the listener to the content the information to know, to visualize, oh, this is a subhead, right? This goes underneath that heading. So titles that you include in your documents, again, we could go back to that policy document. Do you have titles within that policy that you normally would simply change the font size? Can you convert that instead to changing to a style? And then it makes for the immersive reader makes it appropriate and uh, for the style that should be read for immersive readers. So for us to start using styles is imperative for all of our hearing impaired readers. And it just makes sense for us to change those, to make those changes. So I want to encourage you and challenge you to use the style features in your documents when you have little headings that you're using to create, for category sections. So the styles is great tool. And then I like to use that outline piece over here too, just so it helps me to keep everything visual. Like, I guess I must be a visual learner. Okay. So I don't see any questions coming forward. I want to keep going so we don't completely run out of time. I just have a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. Number one is images, right? And how do we insert images? So first of all, images, there's a tool right here that is kind of like a shortcut tool. And I would just click on that. I would either search the web, or maybe, remember we talked about uploading images into Drive. So I could go to Drive. It's going to show my Drive over here where I can access this. It knows what I recently updated. So I will click on that. And at the bottom, then I can choose to insert. So I want to insert my picture, and there's my image. Okay. So it went on to the next page because I didn't have enough space in here for that image. I can resize that image. I clicked on it once, so I can resize it by grabbing one of the corners and just dragging it up. You want to make sure you grab a corner, because if you grab one of these, now all of a sudden I become more chubbier than I normally am, and I'm not really appreciating that look. So make sure you grab a corner, and you can then resize it and keep it in proportion. So that's the key. Grab a corner to keep it in proportion. Also, this ellipses down here underneath the image is where you can make some adjustments. So I like to keep my, sometimes I try to put something and I want to change the transparency. There we go. I changed the transparency. But what I like to do is my text wrapping. And I like to use the option, I'm sorry, I think it's, okay. I like to use the option where it is basically behind the text or wraps around the text, okay? So I would choose that text, and notice it comes back up, and I can move my image and it wraps around there. So on the Word side in Microsoft, it's behind text often that I like to use, but this will wrap it around text. And so I can, move my image, and it takes control and works around that. The other thing I want to show you about images, I'm going to close that and scroll back down. I'm going to go ahead and just go on that next page. Boop, boop. Go ahead. Oh, oops, sorry. Come on. I'm going to try to get onto that next page. Okay, so I'm going to go to that image icon again. So that's up here. I'm going to insert image. This time I'm going to use the search from the web. And one of the reasons why I like to use the search from the web is that Google is going to look for images that have given me license to use. In other words, that are free to share, right? So not copyrighted images. So all I have to do is come in here, and I want to find a picture of a tiger. I'll hit enter, and these are images of tigers. Once I look at it, this is what I would normally do. I would preview the image if this is one that I want, and I'm looking to see where this is coming from. So up here in the right, top left, I see it's from Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a resource that is free to use, so I don't have to worry about copyright. Other resources are Pixabay. Let me see if I can find, this is Wikipedia again. Let me see if I can find a Pixabay one. I don't know where that is. So I probably wouldn't use that, right? Because I don't know where it's coming from. I'm sorry, I should have preloaded that. Okay, but Pixabay is one, Pixabay, Pixabay, and then Wikipedia. Those are two that I know are that you can use. And so all I have to do is click and hold, drag it over to the spot. Remember, it comes down here. It's too big. What do? Click on it one time, take the corner grabber, and then just resize it to as large as I want it. Okay, so that's working with images, formatting around text, how to find them on Google that are licensed for us to use, and how to check to see where they're coming from. Awesome. Okay, what text feature could game change? Oh, okay, awesome. Wrap text is a game changer. Excellent. Thanks, Miranda. Okay, so just a couple more things. I know Anne talked about those links, how we add those links. Remember, I erased the links, but I want to share a couple of things. So up here, I'm just going to copy that link so I have it to use for this example. Let's say that I wanted to link, all right here to this particular document. I highlight those words. I'm going to come up here, go to my ellipses. Actually, I can probably close this and I'll see it. Here is the link icon. So I want to basically paste in that link and apply, and notice it becomes a hot link. I just click on it, goes to my sample, and that becomes, something that's clickable, right? So that's one way to do it. Another way we talked about is that shortened URL that you could just paste in. I personally rarely paste in this whole long link. I rarely do that. It's not something that I think is what we would want to do as an assistance either. I think the best way to do it for me is to highlight the text, copy it, and then add the link right there. But you got to copy the link first, highlight the text, and add the link to that section. So just wanted to make sure that you knew how to do that. So we talked about comments. Sorry, I'm just going fast here because I talk too much. But comments, so if we're sharing something and we want to comment, right here is our comment option, and it's just popping up. The other way to get to comments is right up here. And the reason why I like to use comments, there's a couple of reasons. Okay. Number one is I can add a to-do list. So let's say that I'm going to do this. I can put at B Cubbish at ESU2. I want her, and I'm going to assign this to her, right? So please look at this wording. So Google is automatically going to send B Cubbish at ESU2 an email to remind me that I have to look at this wording. So I can go in assign, and I have to make sure I give her the option to comment if I wanted to, or I could turn on the link sharing, but right now I'm just going to give it to comment. So I like using this comment section specifically for assigning, making a to-do list, either for me or for someone else. So I think it's a great tool. And then finally, and I know this is so fast, but I've had one of my administrators say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Beth. I went into your document and I actually selected all and hit return and everything's gone." And you just want to say a 4-letter word, right? So to get that back, you can get it back. You go to the File menu and you choose Version History. So you can see your entire version history, and you can then pull back the version that was before your administrator made the oops and deleted everything, and you've got it right back again. version history can be your savior if something happens and you shared a document with somebody else. I've used it a lot with a slide deck, and someone used that same slide deck and took out some of my slides that I wanted. I used the version history to come back and bring that back. I know that I finished this off so fast for you today, and I apologize. I didn't want to do that. That wasn't my intention. But I'll stay on for a few minutes if anyone has some questions. But otherwise, thank you all for attending this. And I hope you can make next week too. And we'll talk about specifically Google Forms. Anne?
Beth, we did have a question from Penny. She asked, how do you get rid of the comments when you're ready to share it with others?
Perfect. So let me go back. So basically what you have to do is resolve all of the comments. Number one, you could come back up here to the comment and you're going to get all of the comments listed. So if you had multiple ones, you're going to get them all listed. Okay. So you would mark it as done or resolve it, and you can reopen it later, but notice now the comment is gone. So you need to resolve or mark it as done for those comments to be removed, but you can bring them back if you wanted to. Good
Great.
question. Thank you.
And can you go over that version history one more time?
You bet. Yes. Sorry, I did that so quickly. So again, one of the big things that happened to me was a slide deck, right? And I had shared a partner, a colleague, and I worked on this slide deck together. And then he took the slides and then edited it, took some of them out. And I went back and I was trying to think, where was that? Where was that? So I had to go to version history to find that. So this is the document. You have to know what document that is. So I had to go back to those slides to make sure that was the one that we had worked on. And up in File, I go to Version History, okay? And you can name this version. So if you work on this and this is your final, or this is a version from a certain date or version 2, you can go in and name it. But to see the old versions, right, you come back here and see the version history, and it'll show you all of the versions, the basic changes that were made to that document. So if you've been working on this document different days and made different changes, you will see a pretty good list of the versions that have been saved, auto-saved, right? Everything in Google auto-saves, and then you can revert basically back to that earlier version. If you don't like this, up here you restore that version. That's my blank sheet. If you get to it and you don't like it and you want to go back, you can go back to this earlier version. Notice also there's this down arrow that then this is more specific changes that I may have made. Okay, so you can get into really big detail. The thing is, you can't pick and choose, right? Well, I want these, but I want this revision, but I want to keep this revision. What you have to basically do is do some copy and paste and fix it. But you can get back, if your administrator accidentally deletes your whole document, all of your policies, you can get them back through version history.
And we had another question. When you download a Word doc, do you need to change it to a Google Doc in order to see changes as they are being made by other editors?
So you're downloading a doc, or let me see. When you're downloading a Word doc, do you need to change it to a Google Doc in order to see changes as they were being made by other editors? Well, you could only download as a Word file, right? So when I come into my my document here, am I sharing? Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I go and choose the File menu, which is where I download. So I can download it as a Word doc. I can download it as what I would probably use most often if I'm downloading something as a PDF, but I don't think you can view changes that were made. That's something I'd have to look at. I haven't used it that way. So I apologize, Tracy. I can't really give a good answer to your question if I wanted to see changes that were made by other editors. version history is going to tell you who made those changes. Yes. But I don't know if you download it into Word doc, if you're going to see those changes and who made them. Okay, I've downloaded a file that my superintendent has been editing and wants me to see it as he changes it as a Google Doc. Yeah, you can see it as a Google Doc, but you would not, when you download this Google Doc, it's in a static form. It's not going to change. It's not going to be dynamic like Google. So you would have to do all the changes, do all the edits in Google. And then if you wanted to share it, you wanted to create it in your policy or whatever, then you could download it as a PDF or a Word file. But any changes that you make in Google will not be shown on that downloaded file. So once you download, then that's static and those changes aren't made.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Good.
So I think
All right.
I think we hit all of the questions. I think Renee had asked about the hanging indents that you didn't quite catch it, Renee. But I am recording this session. I know we're running over. I don't want to keep you all any longer. I know your time is precious. But I'm going to send out a recording of this session to everyone. So if you missed something, you can look at it again. I know I have a few people who registered and weren't able to make it. So we want to make these available to everyone who registered. Just a reminder, again, we have Google 102, which means we'll get even Googlier next week, December 15th. That's Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And you should, I believe that it's got the same Zoom link, but I'll send out a reminder Tuesday right before, so it's easy to find and we can all get in real quick. Thank you to Beth. Beth, you did a great job.
Oh, thanks.
So nice to have this resource to be able to tap for AESA. Got to put a plug in for AESA. You know, if you've got colleagues or coworkers within your organization, you know, please share this information with them. Or if they aren't getting the newsletter, reach out to me. If some of you aren't, I'd sure like to sign you up for the newsletter. That's where we announce these webinars and trainings, and also on our website. So, and we have the AESA community. Beth is our platform lead. She's our community cheerleader, and we do have an executive assistance community. And I'm sorry to say it's not as active as I would like it to be. And I'm guilty of that too, because we all get busy and we have the annual conference and I haven't had a lot of time to get in there, but it's a great platform to communicate with each other. If you've got a problem of practice or something like that, please put it in there and, you know, ask your colleagues for help.
So what I can do is put my slide deck in the community. So the only way you can get the slides is by joining the community and getting an account on the platform and then joining that community.
Yep. And if you haven't joined and you're interested, you can go to the website up in the upper right corner. You'll see AESA community, or you can reach out to me and I've got a little cheat sheet on getting in and creating an account. I can send that to you. So please do that. So other than that, I think we're good. Beth, you did a great job. Thanks everybody, and have a great rest of your day. See you next week.
See ya. Hi, Deb. Thanks a lot, everybody.